Coming to Kindle Unlimited this April, Esteemed Goddess of Hell's aspiring angel takes on a demonic dominatrix in this all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteemed Goddess of on Kindle Unlimited or pick up the paperback today. Yesterday, director Wes Ball announced that he would be directing a reboot of The Planet of the Apes. And I found this to be quite troubling because we recently just got through a trilogy of Planet of the Apes movies with War of the Planet of the Apes 3 years ago. And this reboot of a reboot of a reboot signifies a serious problem with Hollywood's executives, and it just shows me how scared Hollywood executives are of brand new ideas and brand new concepts. Now, your Wes Ball was known for directing the Maze Runner films based on that series of young adult novels. And Wes Ball would be better served in his craft directing something based on original concepts like Maze Runner, because that would allow him an opportunity to create films that would allow him to reach a new audience of viewers. However, because Hollywood has a bunch of cowards in their executive offices, they want to saddle this director with an old franchise that I believe needs a rest, because War of the Planet of the Apes was the last film in the reboot trilogy. It's been only 3 years since that trilogy ended, and it's just time to rest that old concept and let some new concepts come to the marketplace. Unfortunately, because Hollywood's executives are just too scared to explore new concepts, what they do is reboot old franchises, remake old movies, and they do this because they are so afraid of a new concept failing at the box office and not reaching a new audience, that they believe that the only way to make money at the box office is to play it safe. Unfortunately, they're making the same mistake that Hollywood executives made back in the late 1960s and 1970s, where they got caught up in making musicals, war movies, and epic historical pictures, and the audience had changed because the baby boomer generation was dealing with the Vietnam War, and they did not see the world that they were growing up in reflected on the silver screen. And the same thing is transpiring right now with the baby boomers and Generation X. They continue to bring out their favorite concepts and their favorite ideas as related to film, and they trot out their favorite franchises for Millennial, Generation Z, and Generation Y to watch. And Generation Y, Millennials, and Generation Z just aren't interested in seeing these kind of films because they're not telling a story about their world, their experiences, and the civilization that they're living in. They don't see a commentary about their world on screen, and this is the main reason why Hollywood's box office has been down for the last several years, because Hollywood executives continue to try to reboot a reboot of a reboot, and this reboot of the Planet of the Apes just shows how scared Hollywood executives are, because usually Hollywood executives would let an old franchise like Planet of the Apes rest, and they would leave that concept in the box for a good 10 or 15 years, because they would say, look, the audience has already seen this and they don't need to see it yet again. And with the third movie, War of the Planet of the Apes, underperforming, it's just not a good time to launch another reboot of the franchise. Unfortunately, today's Hollywood executives are just too scared to take a risk on anything new. And because they're so scared of taking a risk on anything new, what they do is try to trot out the same old franchises, the same old concepts, not understanding that the audience of today just does not relate to concepts from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and 50 years ago, because the world is a completely different place. And because most of your Gen Y, Millennials, and Generation Z don't see their world on Hollywood silver screen, this is why they primarily are heading over to places like YouTube to get their media from, because the YouTubers make media that they can relate to. Unfortunately, your Hollywood executives are so stuck in the past that they just don't want to embrace the future. And because they don't want to embrace the future, this is why their time may become more, their days may become more and more numbered, because you can't keep rebooting franchises over and over again and hoping that the audience comes out to watch them, because that's just not an economically feasible model, because these movies are costing more and more to make. And just like in the 60s, those movies that cost more and more to make and are require things like the international box office to secure a profit, this is just not a viable business model that can continue to go on. So Hollywood is in a real bind right now, and to say you're going to bring Planet of the Apes back for another reboot shows how little imagination is in Hollywood right now, and how Tinseltown has become an echo chamber filled with people stuck in a past and have no interest in building a concrete future for new films and new concepts, and have no interest in going out here to explore any new concepts. And what's really sad is you just had a director direct a series of movies like The Maze Runner, which were based on that popular series of YA novels. And instead of Hollywood going out and looking for another YA franchise, or even looking to a writer like myself who makes YA novels to make a brand new concept, they would rather continue having this man who has some vision go out here and explore an old concept when he should be out here exploring a brand new concept that makes a commentary about the world going on today. So that just shows me how completely out of touch many of your Hollywood executives are, how little vision your Hollywood executives have, and how they just really aren't on the ball as related to tapping the cultural pulse of America. And because they're not tapping the cultural pulse of America, this is the main reason why Hollywood's box office continues to decline year after year, because they continue to trot out movies for older audiences instead of trying to find a way to engage the younger audiences with stories they relate to and their experiences in the world. Because if you don't find stories that make commentary to the younger audiences, you're going to lose those younger audiences. And this is the main reason why Hollywood has been losing to YouTube and YouTubers, is because they just don't want to reach those younger audiences by showing them the world that they know. No, they'd rather show us a world that many of these Hollywood executives grew up in, a world that was 30, 40, or 50 years ago, and not show us that world we grew up in, they're growing up in, or their experiences today. So I look at this reboot of a reboot coming 3 years after a series ends, and this is not a good thing for Hollywood overall, because it just shows how messed up Hollywood's executives are, and how they just don't have any vision anymore, how they have no creativity, no imagination, and how they're just too caught up in counting beans to take the risks that made Hollywood a billion-dollar business, because the only way for Hollywood to make money is to take risks. Unfortunately, today's Hollywood is so filled with cowardly executives that no one wants to take a risk or get the rewards that we got when we had classic films like Star Wars and The Godfather come out in the 70s and break the slump that Hollywood was in from the late 60s to early 70s. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, the Spinsterella trilogy, and the Thetas, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, E-Steam: The Sands of Time. It's action and adventure in ancient Egypt in this terrific teen time travel romance. Get your copy of E-Steam: The Sands of Time at your favorite online bookseller today.